So you may have some questions about why you should practice scales or how you should practice scales. So I just want to take a minute or two to address that. It is important just to know what the notes are and know what the key signatures are, but really I don't think that's the reason to practice scales. That's just kind of the first step. What you want to get to the point that you don't have to think about the notes, that you know them so well that you can completely ignore that and put that on autopilot and think about other things. For example, all the technical things that you're working on. Like, so for example, maybe you've been really concentrating on your bow arm and flexibility here, or keeping your best bow hold, or a certain bow stroke, or having your greatest tone. So what you can do with your scales is, instead of thinking about this or thinking about the notes of a piece, which may, sort of distract your attention, you can just focus on that one thing and really work to improve it. So for example, maybe I've been working on spiccato, so I'll do my scales with that bow stroke. Or if, maybe I've been working on vibrato, so the scales would be a nice place to just take some time to not have to think about the notes and just be able to really focus on that physical motion and sensation. So that's what scales are actually for. That's the reason for doing them. In terms of how to do them, I think it depends largely on the situation. If you're playing scales, maybe you're going to play your scales for an audition or for some sort of competition. You're going to have to play them in front of judges. Probably what they want to hear in that situation is that you've got really great intonation, that your rhythm is really steady, and generally in that situation, slower and steady is the way to go. And what that slow tempo can get you is an opportunity then also to show off your most beautiful tone, which is definitely something they'll be listening for. So ask yourself, are you getting a tone, a sound like this, or are you getting a sound like this? And obviously it's that second one you want. So that would be how to play them if you were preparing for something like that. Now again, I mentioned you could use a different bow stroke on it or some sort of bowing pattern if that's what you're working on in your pieces. What we've done in these videos, of course, is I've got the metronome on. I'm working on keeping that steady tempo, and I'm also playing with the drones. And both the metronome and some kind of drone pitch are hugely helpful for working on scales, because they keep you honest rhythmically and they keep you pretty honest intonation-wise. So I'm comparing the pitch that I'm playing with the tonality of the scale. And that can really, really help to fine-tune your intonation. So that would be one way to practice them. I also really love, when I'm practicing scales, just to kind of make a meditation out of it. For one thing, I'll sort of go through my body as I play and check if I'm holding tension anywhere. I'll check if my shoulders are relaxed, if I can move my head around, that kind of thing. And also, one of my favorite ways to practice scales is to inhale on the down bows and exhale on the up bows, and just try to make my breath really match the smoothness of my sound. That can be a really wonderful way just to get yourself into focused practice mode and relaxed practice mode. So there's no one true way to practice scales. You can do it any number of ways. Just depends what that larger concept is that you're trying to work on and trying to focus on. And then just one last thing. You may have wondered why I did the scales in these videos in the order that I did them. And what it was is I was following what's called the circle of fifths. So I started at the scale that has no sharps and no flats, that being C major. And I went up a fifth for the next scale, which means I went basically up 5 notes to the scale that has 1 sharp, that being G major. So I started with C, no sharps and no flats. C, D, E, F, G, went up 5 notes. My next scale, G major, in the circle of fifths, has 1 sharp. If I want to know what the next scale is, the one with 2 sharps, I'm going to go up 5 notes again, up a fifth. So G, A, B, C, D. That was the next scale I did. Again, up 5 notes for the next one, for 3 sharps. D, E, F, G, A. So then I went to A major. And one of the wonderful things about playing the cello is that it's really easy for us to remember what this order of keys is that follows the circle of fifths, because our instruments are tuned in fifths. So I started with C major, no sharps, no flats. Next one, I just went up to the next string, G major, 1 sharp. Next scale is going to be up another string, D major. Next scale, up another string, A major. And just each of those, that the name of that key adds 1 sharp. And eventually I get around and I have to start subtracting flats instead to get back around this cycle. So, that's one way to think about it, and once I get up to A, if I'm like, oops, I ran out of strings, I can't go any further this way to figure out what the next key is, I'll just find a different A on my cello, go up to the next string, that same place, it's going to be E major is the next one. Want to know what the next key is after that? Just go up a string, now I'm in B major. Okay, so this is the circle of fifths. And it also works for figuring out the order of the sharps and flats. So I started out, my first sharp is F sharp, my next sharp is C sharp, my next sharp is G sharp, my next sharp is D sharp, right? So, every time I have a scale with 1 sharp, or any time I play a piece with 1 sharp, it's always going to be F sharp. If I have a key with 2 sharps, it's always going to be F and C. If I have a scale with 3 sharps, it's always going to be F, C, and G, all right? So remembering this pattern in this order is pretty important in the long run. But there are some helpful little tricks you can use to do it. So, different mnemonic devices. And the one I usually use and tell my students is, fat cats go down alleys eating bananas, or birds, or bagels, or whatever you want them to eat. All right, so what that means is fat, first sharp, F sharp. Second sharp, cat, C. Third sharp, go, all right? So that's just a mnemonic device for remembering the order, so you don't have to count up a fifth every time or figure it out on your cello. And then the order of the flats, they have a similar little mnemonic device, and I think everyone pretty much uses the same one, that the first 4 flats spell the word bead. So if you have 1 flat, it's B flat. If you have 2, it's B and E. If you have 3, B, E, A, all right? And then once you get past those 4, you need to remember greatest common factor. So your next 3 flats are G, C, and F. So bead plus greatest common factor will help you remember the order of flats. And fat cats go down alleys eating something that begins with B will help you remember the order of the sharps. So I hope that's helpful.